welcome everybody to today's webinar on personal productivity. My name's Charlie, as you can see, and my background is in education and psychology. So personal productivity is something I've had to assess at length in my career and personal life. So in my role as a training consultant at People Unboxed, I'm always wanting to give people easy hacks, strategies, ways to make their work and personal lives easier. And I'm confident we can do that today with everything that we're going to discuss.
And my name is Aggie, as you can see, and I've been helping leaders existing and emerging to be better at people skills for around 10 years now. And one of the things I usually teach people is how to deal with their productivity and with managing their time. Because when you're managing people, you also need to manage your time and their time better. And I know not all of you might be people managers, but these skills are pretty universal for, as my boss once said, everyone with a job. So we're going to be talking about this from a couple of perspectives today, and we've started the recording, so let's keep going.
So just a heads up, we're going to have this recording available for you to review if you need to after the session. So you can share it with other people if you think it might be useful to them. The slides will be shared as well. Please use that chat function. We will be throwing a few things out to the room. And obviously we've muted you and haven't got your cameras on so that we can share as much information as possible, but we would love your input. Just to kick us off, what I would love to hear from you all is what your expectations are for today. So if there's anything in particular that you have as a challenge or that you would like us to lean into, please pop that in the chat now. Always insightful.
Yeah, exactly. It will be interesting to hear what the biggest challenges are when it comes to productivity, when it comes to managing your time and energy, because you come from all different backgrounds as far as we could tell from the signups. So if you want to let us know in the chat. And while we're waiting, I'll just tell you what's on the agenda today, just in case you need that little prop. Rachel says prioritizing when busy. Aren't we busy all the time, right? So we will start by asking you an important question. Should we fight procrastination? And Kimberly says procrastination, some hints and tips to help prioritizing. That's exactly what we will tell you about. But Charlie, do you want to put that poll up and let's ask everybody what they think about fighting procrastination? Next, after we talk about that, we'll look at the difference between active and passive procrastination. Not everybody knows that, but not all of those delays are made the same and created equal. And we will get some help to understand which path our procrastination is taking and what we can do about that. And then we'll dive into time management and prioritization, and I'll teach you how to use the Eisenhower matrix, which is one of the best tools I know to help with organizing your lives. And then we'll talk about spotting time stealers. How do we know what is sucking up our energy and stealing our time? And throughout the session, we'll pepper in some practical strategies, and you can use them immediately. And we'll also ask you to share any strategies that you're already using that are really working for you, because we hope that even though we're only interacting through chat, you can still learn some stuff from each other. Svetlana says, with less experienced team members, it can be tricky to prioritize the right thing and not get lost in the detail of something less urgent. Yes, absolutely. And I will speak to this exactly, because the difference between something that's urgent and something that's important is an important difference to know about. So if you have any questions that we don't cover, we're happy to stick around afterwards and we can talk about this. But first, we've got some answers in chat. So, Charlie, tell us about procrastination.
Yeah, so I'm just going to end this poll and share the results. So a little mix of responses from everyone today. So a large portion of you, just under half, saying yes, we should fight procrastination, whereas just over the other half of you saying it depends. It's really interesting actually because more than 95% of people admit that they procrastinate. I think we can all relate. And yes, should we fight it? It's a great question. And I think it's quite a common thing for us all to experience. Aggie, I'm sure you can relate to that as well.
Yeah, I am definitely in that 95%. I do keep catching myself. You would think it's February by now. We should have gotten over all the slump post Christmas and then gotten into the productivity mindset, kind of, but I don't think I'm quite there.
Yeah, and we immediately think procrastination is bad, but not all procrastination is actually unhelpful. So some forms can be useful, others are obstacles, and that's exactly what we're going to dig into more today. So to comprehend this further, the first thing we need to establish is the why behind the behavior. And that is
All
what
right,
we're looking
let's
at.
look at the why.
Yeah, so some people procrastinate for different reasons, and there are two main driving forces behind delaying a task. So you can see on this flow diagram, we've got two main arms of it. And on the left, in the red, we've got procrastination, which we call passive procrastination, when people are driven by fear. That could be fear of failure, overwhelm, so we avoid because we're overwhelmed, and even at times boredom. We don't want to do a boring task. On the other hand, there's something called passive procrastination, and that is the right hand side, the green arm of the flow diagram. And that's when people are driven by the desire to create pressure for themselves because they are more effective when they are working and it feels urgent. And sometimes there is an intentional delay in order to think about things a little bit more or mull things over and think creatively. So there's two key arms of that there. It's interesting. What do we think is our driving force behind our procrastination? So we've got some reasons attached to this flow diagram. So potentially we might have that fear or avoidance side, that passive procrastination, because we're a bit of a perfectionist, or we're just really bad at engaging in tasks when they feel boring. Or on the other hand, we might use that strategic delay for creativity, or we know that we work better to a deadline. We're more motivated that way. So I'd love to hear in the chat, do any of these reasons resonate with you?
And it doesn't have to be that it's all the same reason all the time, but for a lot of people, it's mostly one or the other. Or there are specific tasks that you keep delaying, while on others, you're just fine not procrastinating. So again, let us know in chat, is there anything that speaks to you? Is there anything that we're sharing here that you recognize in yourself?
Yeah, so these driving forces help us to determine which type of procrastination we're practicing. So is it that passive on the red of the flow, or is it more active, the green on the flow? And understanding this will help us move forward in a way where we're going to be more effective.
I think for me, a lot of the time, it's perfectionism. If I stay on the passive side, I do want everything to be great or to be as good as possible, and that's why I sometimes delay starting because, well, if I can't get to the end of the task, then why would I even start?
Absolutely.
Right?
And
We've got some comments in chat.
yes, I can relate to what Rachel's saying. If something doesn't excite me and it's boring, I'm just not going to do, I'm not going to do it. Or a deadline doesn't seem urgent.
Sarah
So
also says perfectionist, like me, instead of getting it done, I overanalyze and want it to be right. Yeah, it's the preparation that takes us such a long time, isn't it?
yeah, Kelly's mentioned fear of failure or avoidance, and sometimes then we just delay in starting that task.
Monica says a mix of both at different times depending on the task. Yeah, and that's very true. So we'll ask you a couple of questions about that to help you kind of diagnose. And choosing the tasks that are more enjoyable is definitely something that actually helps your productivity because at least you doing things, but then are you doing the right things? That's another question. And Svetlana says intentional delay is really interesting. I feel like I do that often to find a personal tendency to be a rapid responder. Yeah. And for a lot of people, they've spent years and years being that rapid responder, fighting fires. And do you know what happens when you fight too many fires? You burn out.
Yeah. And it can be quite challenging at times to be self-aware and really understand the form of procrastination that we are practicing. So we've got a really clear framework, which we will share in a moment, where you can utilize three key questions, and that can help us to diagnose which form of procrastination we're leaning on. And that can enable us to act appropriately and maximize our effectiveness. So we're going to look at that now on this next slide.
I've already shared it, so we can keep going.
Wow. So these three questions are really useful to giving us that insight. And Aggie, I'm sort of going to ask these of you to help unpick the types of procrastination that you might practice. So
Okay.
the first question I would ask you is, with the task that you are due to be doing, is it a deep task, deep work that needs focus and creativity? Or would you say it's more of a shallow task? So things such as admin or data input.
It's often deep tasks with admin or data input. I usually just tend to get on with it and get it over with. But with deep tasks, yeah, I do that lots of prep.
And if it's deep work, so it sounds like it is, delaying isn't awful. It's really not a bad thing. It can be giving you some extra thinking space, time to percolate your thoughts. We call that incubation, and that can help creativity and innovation. And that is really a form of active procrastination and not something we need to always fight. If it's a shallow task that you're delaying on, so doing that admin or that data that doesn't need that creativity, it's probably avoidance based and passive procrastination. And we might need some strategies to help us on that one. Now, the second question is, are you delaying because you feel fearful or like, afraid of failing? Or are you feeling in control and choosing to wait because it might help you to prioritize or perform better? So is it fear or in control?
I guess I try to be in control because if I know what I need to do with the task and I just need to prepare, then I can do that brain preparation or brain work in the background while doing something physical, like getting my steps in or making tea.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if we're feeling in control and we're choosing to do certain things either to prioritize or to prepare and set ourselves up ready to tackle that task, that can be really useful. And again, that can be that active procrastination that allows us to get the best outcomes. If we're feeling really anxious and overwhelmed and fearful and we're just not doing it because of all that overwhelm, that can be fear-driven delay, that passive procrastination, and that can be draining our energy in itself. So
Mm.
again, weigh that up. What are our feelings towards the task? Because that can be a great indicator as to whether we need to put some strategies in place and get on with things, or if it's actually a useful delay.
Okay.
Final question now is about what we're doing when we're procrastinating. So, are we numbing or are we incubating. So numbing task, well, procrastination might include things like scrolling on social media or binge watching something. Whereas if you are incubating, you might be doing something else that's productive or restorative. So you could be cleaning your workspace or writing a list or even going for a walk to allow those thoughts to kind of simmer and digest. So, what do we think there? Numbing or incubating as distractions, Aggie?
Um, Not sure if it's quite distractions, but I do focus on that good preparation. So before I start that deep work that I know is going to take me quite a while, I want to bring everything I need on my desk to my desk. I want to make sure that I've got a notepad. I'm going to write a list. I'm going to check, like, do I have anything in my diary that's going to interrupt? So maybe I need to move things around. I'm going to make a good plan.
Absolutely. And that sort of incubating, that prep, that planning is a form of active procrastination. And again, not something we will need to fight as such. Whereas if you were sitting scrolling on social media, we can all relate sometimes, that's that numbing and that's that passive procrastination. It's not helping us at all. And again, they're the sorts of behaviors that we might need strategies to help us address. So,
Mm.
yes, it really can be difficult to be self-aware sometimes on these. And those three questions can be really useful. Of course, answering those questions might elicit a mix of passive and active tendencies. It's really about reflecting on whether the actions and behaviors are serving you or if you need to utilize other strategies to maximize your effectiveness. And if it's passive, we might need to lean on something else. And we're going to have a look at that in this next slide. Awesome.
All right, we have a list. We don't want to reveal everything at the same time. While you're listening, you can also think, is there anything that you do specifically? But first, Charlie, tell me about making that task stimulating.
Yes, so this isn't an exhaustive list. So if there's further things that you do, as Aggie mentioned, pop them in the chat and let's share best practice. But I find making tasks stimulating just an easy win for me. If I've got that boring task I don't want to address, I find putting some music on in the background, generally lyric-free music, as it's least distracting. Either changing my environment, I tend to move about my house and have lots of different workstations to mix things up a little bit. Or my total winner is pairing the task with something delightful, such as having a coffee or knowing I've got that coffee that as I reach the end of the task, I'm gonna enjoy. So pairing it with something stimulating and enjoyable to make it feel a little bit nicer.
Yeah, or rewarding yourself at the end. When I finish with this spreadsheet, I'm gonna make this coffee extra special with sprinkles on. Right? So that was making task stimulating. There are a couple more things we can do. Rachel says she loves the pairing and the reward. Yeah, just maybe don't buy yourself a PlayStation 5 every time you finish your tax return, because that's probably not financially viable, but small rewards are okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is breaking tasks down, especially when we are scared of starting something because it's a big project, it's going to take us a long time, it's a deep task, but it's also sprawling. So it seems like you can't address it at all. You don't know where to start. So breaking it down, making a little plan, just like what I often do, is going to help. There is a saying about this. They say you can't eat an elephant because it's too big. To eat an elephant, you need to chop it into smaller pieces. So make yourself some little milestones. And another benefit of that is that you're creating smaller chunks which are easier to address, but also you might create yourself shorter deadlines for those specific chunks, which can also help you with that feeling or need for urgency. And once you've broken stuff down, then you just need to start. This is a big problem for quite a lot of people that we find it hard to start a task. Oh, but maybe I can do something else for 5 minutes and then I'll take care of that. And then you've been doom scrolling for 25 minutes or an hour has passed because you've been binge watching TV, right? So start avoiding starting tasks. If that's a problem for you and for your brain, there's research that says that if you only start, if you force yourself to start, then you're more likely than not to just continue after 5 minutes. And there are a couple of methods to help you with that. First, I bet you've heard about frog eating, right? Eat a frog first thing in the morning and nothing worse is going to happen to you all day. Famous quote from Mark Twain. And it's true, we tend to delay starting things that we don't really want to do. Like you've got a toothache, but you really don't want to go to the dentist, so you're thinking, oh no, I'll call the dentist tomorrow. I don't really have the time to do it today. Or oh yeah, I do need to fill in my tax return, but I really can't do it right now. I don't have enough time. So if you don't deal with that straight away, it's going to weigh on you more and more and more, and that frog is just going to turn into a really nasty toad, and you don't want that. So eat that frog. Start with those hard tasks. But, and I will say it multiple times today, brains are different. And for some of us, some of these bits of advice, we need to flip them on their heads to make them work for our brains. So if you can't start with the big tasks straight away, start with a couple of smaller frogs. Maybe you need to gain momentum. So if that's you, then start with a couple of small, quick wins. That will give you that dopamine hit that you need to have to force yourself to start a task. Another method of forcing yourself to start, and that is a favorite among a lot of my ADHD friends, is the Pomodoro method, where you literally use a timer to force yourself to do a task. So to use that Pomodoro method, you need to, well, make a plan for your task to be, well, to be separated into 25-minute chunks, and it's 25 minutes because apparently, according to research, this is how long we can really focus for before we lose that focus. So you force yourself to start, you work for 25 minutes until your timer goes, then you take a short 5-minute break, like for a stretch, go pet your dog, make yourself another coffee, come back, work for 25 minutes again. It could be on the same tasks if you haven't finished, if it's a longer one, or it could be a different one. Again, whatever works for your brain. And then after you've done 4 Pomodoros, magically you've done 2 hours of work and you can afford yourself a longer break. So these are two ways of just starting. And Charlie, how about connecting things to purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. This one really resonates with me as well. If if we have a task and we don't see the meaning of it, or we can't understand the bigger picture or the why, that can really impact our motivation. And this is rooted in neuroscience. Not sure if many of you have seen Simon Sinek's Start With Why, but the part of our brain that is our primal brain and drives a lot of our intrinsic motivation very much links to Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. And at the center of that is understanding the why and understanding our purpose. So if you've been given a task by a manager and you're not sure how it connects to the bigger picture, you're not sure really why you're doing it or its purpose, I can only but say to really truly find out, and that will help you to gain that motivation and that momentum and get started on whatever it is that you need to be doing. Equally, sometimes we need to remind ourselves, yes, I don't want to do all that data input, but that is going to help me with the analysis, and that's going to help me see these customer trends, which is going to make me far more productive in my marketing and who I'm going to be directing all this information to, which is going to make my life easier. Okay, I'll do this data input. It's understanding what you're doing and the purpose of it. So connect to that purpose and drive that motivation, that intrinsic motivation far more powerful when it comes from within than just doing something for that external validation or that external reward.
I agree. And sometimes it's thinking to myself, I'm doing this for my future self. So it's super boring tracking your expenses as they come along to, for example, submit them at the end of the month or submit them at the end of the quarter. I know in my previous job, that was a running joke that the expenses system was so bad that nobody wanted to even go into it. But then at the end of that period, you could just submit all of them instead of spending 4 hours looking through your receipts, right? So you're doing this for yourself, possibly. Oh, that's a good one, Charlie. I need to look at
Yeah.
things like that more. All right.
It's human
Mhm.
human nature to just want that quick win and that
Yeah.
dopamine hit. So sometimes we need to take a different angle on how we approach our thought process on things for sure.
Yeah. And sometimes we just need to remove distractions from where we are. It's don't know if you've seen this statistic. It's kind of shocking, and there's been lots of research done. And because brains are different, the research isn't quite consistent. But if you look at all of it together, it turns out that when you get distracted from a focus state, it takes over 20 minutes to get back into that focus. I'll be throwing in an article link that says it's around 23, but it goes up to 40 according to some research. I'll throw that in the email we'll be sending all of you later. So if you are working, if you're in the flow, if you're very focused, it's enough that something pings, that your phone lights up, that your Teams goes bing bong or anything happens. Somebody comes to you and asks you a question that will throw you out of that focus zone. And then you'll be like, what was I even doing? That was a 3 second question, and I'm just so distorted for the next 20 odd minutes. So limit those distractions. My phone has been on silent for the last 7 years. It's not allowed to make noises because I get easily distracted. Your Teams or any other platform that you're using should have the do not disturb function. And I know some of you will now be thinking, oh, but if I put myself on do not disturb, then I'm going to get shouted at by someone on my team because they need me to be available all the time. Okay, maybe this is a conversation that's worth having. If you have tasks that you really need to focus on, then I think it's worth saying, I need to focus on this. If you distract me every moment, then this is going to take me 5 hours. And if you don't distract me, if you just let me focus, it's going to take me two. And some of those distractions might also be doing things at the same time, because we live in a time, and we've been in this time for 20 odd years, when everybody was shouting about multitasking. You need to be able to multitask, you need to be able to do so many things at once. But our brains were not built for that. If you are doing two or more tasks at the same time, it's more likely than not, then you're just doing every single one of those tasks less well. So if you really want to do something as well as possible, then focus on that one thing. Maybe put some music without lyrics in the background if you are dealing with text, because this goes into the same space in your brain, and your brain will get distracted if it needs to process lyrics in the background and process a Word document at the same time. So no distractions. Put yourself on do not disturb and try to just do single tasking instead of multitasking.
Yes, and it can be difficult in face-to-face environments as well. I remember I used to actually put a sign on my chair, do not disturb me, do not talk to me, so that I could really get in the detail of whatever work I was doing. And sometimes you might
Yeah.
actually just need to remove yourself and go and find a space where people can't find you if you need to get into a deep task. So both those are good ideas if you are like me. Um, if you've got any more ideas, things that we haven't covered, of course, this isn't an exhaustive list. We would love to hear it in the chat. Any quick wins, good hacks that you've got to share with everybody else. But also, we'd love to hear what you think about the five that we have shared. So I'm just going to launch a poll here. Which strategy do you think could work for you? So which one will you lean on next time? Love
I'll
to.
just go back to what people said in chat when we were talking. Patrick said adding a bunch of quick wins to delay starting, which feels validating. I find tends to creep up often and delay doing the big tasks. Yeah, this is the moment when you have to notice, okay, I've had some small wins. I really need to get going with this big thing. So you can absolutely go into procrastinating while being effective with some things just because you're trying to delay the big thing so much. So sometimes you do need to control yourself like that. And Svetlana says breaking down is really powerful when there's fear of failure or lack of clarity because you can get a small slice done and validate with someone that you're actually on the right track and get a little confidence boost. I love that, Svetlana. Absolutely correct. Especially when you are or you have that perfectionist streak, when you don't want to submit a big piece of work and then somebody to tell you, oh, that's not what I meant. You have to redo it from the start. So yeah, doing a small chunk and making sure that you get that little validation.
Of
I'm
course,
all for
the
that.
opposite can also happen. So when we're practicing passive procrastination and then we haven't done the task, it can really impact our self-esteem because we know we should have done it. And that in turn ends up, us delaying even more because it's impacted our esteem. And then we're in that vicious cycle of not doing it and feeling negative about ourselves and continuing not to do it. So sometimes a little slice of positivity, a small win can really shift that mindset and get us out of that.
Yeah, and I can see in the poll that making tasks stimulating is not super popular. So maybe this is something that would be worth trying. But a lot of people said, yeah, removing distractions is the one. And it's so important to remember that because we basically work on distraction machines, right? All of us, or most of us, work with a computer most of the time, which will show us all kind of pop-ups. So blocking those is a good is a good practice or something that's worth trying. Right. So if you still have any comments, then please feel free to leave them in chat. We will be monitoring that. But let us move along to time management. Charlie, do you want to kick us off? Charlie, you're muted.
We've talked a lot about procrastination, but there are other challenges we're going to face when managing our time. Sometimes I feel like I have so many things to do, not sure quite where to start. That can be an absolutely tricky situation I find myself in quite often. So, yeah, it'd be great to unpick how to choose what to procrastinate, not to procrastinate on, to choose what to put my attention on and make myself more effective.
And you're definitely not the only person who finds that challenging because we do, or a lot of us, we live in that dynamic space where we have to do so many things. A lot of us don't or can't focus on just one thing because we're responsible for so many tasks. So sometimes it's just a barrage of things stopping us from actually being effective. So I want to show you that tool that I mentioned in the beginning that can really get you through some really busy times. And I know it worked for me, and that's why I love sharing it. But before I show you that Eisenhower matrix, the first thing you need to understand about organizing our time is prioritization. And to understand prioritization, we need to get over that popular notion that urgent is the same as important. I want you to drill this into your mind. It is not. And Patrick mentioned that in chat a couple of minutes ago that there will be a lot of requests coming in from other people, especially from people above us, who will say, this is both urgent and important. I need it for yesterday. So how do we protect ourselves from that? We will take inspiration from Dwight Eisenhower. If you're a history buff like me, then you've heard about him before. If not, then you need to know two things really. He used to be an American president back in the 50s, and before that, he was a general in World War II. So you can imagine from just these two things that Eisenhower was a super busy guy. And he had this little philosophy, a quote that he used to quote somebody else saying, urgent tasks are never important, and important tasks are never urgent. So whenever something required his attention, he would decide which of these two characteristics the task had. And you might be wondering, because I've taught this theory to so many people, and I always get this question, okay, but can you give me a definition? What does that mean that something is important? What does that mean that something is urgent? Well, important will be either important to you, to your role, to your purpose in the business, and urgent is something that needs to happen today or maybe tomorrow at the start of the day at the latest. But the easiest explanation I can give you is important, you ask yourself, is it me? Do I need to do this? Do I need to address this? And the urgent, is it now? That's the question to ask. So let me show you how this works. We will be asking, is it me? And is it now? And once you've answered these two questions, we will be applying four different strategies. So if you've decided that, yes, this task that just came in my email or somebody asked me to do something, is it me? Is it now? And you said yes, well, the strategy is to do it now. So sometimes these will be tasks that you've planned for a given day or a given time, and the time has come and you need to address it. Or sometimes it's going to be stuff popping up last minute. And that might be fires that we need to address, but do beware of those last minute tasks. These will be the one you need to look into and really ask, is it me? And is it now? Because otherwise you will end up firefighting all day long. But what if you said, yes, okay, it is important, it is me, I need to address this, but not necessarily now. That goes into quadrant two of the Eisenhower matrix. And Eisenhower would tell us that we need to decide when to do it, plan how long is it going to take me, how much time do I need, am I doing other things before that deadline, and put it in the calendar. And then when the time comes, you move it into quadrant one, into the do it now, and you just address it. But what that does is tricking your brain into, well, delaying. Really, you have planned, you have analyzed how long the task is going to take you. You don't need to worry about it until the time comes. And when it comes, it goes into quadrant one. So these were the tasks that we said, yes, this is me. It's now or not now. But what if we say, no, it's not important. It's not me. Maybe somebody else can do it. Often we will get tasks that get passed on to us or assigned to us, and possibly we're not the only one who can address it. So then Eisenhower would tell us that if it's not me, but it is now, it's not important, but is urgent, we should look for someone to delegate the task to. And of course, not all of us have teams or work as a people manager so we can pass our tasks on. But maybe you have someone on your team or working around you who is less busy but has the same set of skills. Maybe you can ask somebody for help. Maybe this is a task that you could just green light at the end, but somebody else could contribute beforehand. For a lot of managers, they aren't working enough in this space, in this quadrant, and they're just taking all of those tasks for themselves. Instead of, for example, passing them on to someone on the team who could really learn something from that task. But of course, you might be thinking, I'm a sole contributor, I can't delegate to anybody. Then in that case, the answer of not me, not important, is just not available. And sometimes that's how it goes. But lastly, maybe we said this task is neither urgent nor important. It's not me. It's not now. It belongs in the bin. Eisenhower would tell us to delete it. If it's not worth doing by myself, if it doesn't need to be done now, why are we even considering it? And for a lot of people in the workplace in the 21st century, this is going to be meetings that could have been emails, but for some reason weren't. It's going to be processes and procedures that we've been doing for ages, but for quite a while now, everybody's been thinking that we are just performing it for the art's sake and it's going nowhere. If we stopped, would anybody even care? So it's obsolete processes that we are just doing because we've been doing them forever and ever and ever. But good news, something that wasn't quite as available to Eisenhower as it is to us in 2026 is automation. Sometimes you can just automate those tasks that are neither urgent nor important. Like, for example, if you if you're not a big fan of vacuuming your house and it's not really urgent because nobody is allergic to dust and it's not important, you really don't want to do it, you can get yourself a robot vacuum and hey, you've automated a task and you've freed up some of your time. But addressing this last quadrant will sometimes require asking hard questions and especially up the chain of command. So if there are meetings that are feeling like they could be emails, or if there are processes that feel like a waste of time, maybe it's time to ask somebody, why are we doing this? Is it still worth our time? Or should we maybe try to automate this? So, a question for you. Looking at the Eisenhower matrix, I've been talking for quite a while, so I promise I will shut up about it. Where do you feel like you spend most of your time at work? Let us know in the poll. We've got quite a lot of quadrant one. Oh my gosh, everybody lives in the do it now, in the quadrant that's on fire. Okay, we've got a couple of people mainly planning and deciding when to do things, and that's strategic quadrant two. All right. Nobody spends most of their time delegating. But good news, also nobody spends most of their time wasting time by things that should be deleted. So that's good news. So we still have a moment to look at this for a couple more minutes. Kimberly says, "Do it now, then feel bad because it's not done." And Svetlana says, "I have a to-do list split into today, most urgent at the top, this week, sometime this quarter." So kind of all of them because I often delete things from some time. Yes, so some of this is further planning, but that is often a problem that we just keep delaying the things when they come, when the time comes, let's say, and move them further away. I definitely do that with some tasks that I haven't managed to do in a given week. But then we're not being strategic. Then again, we're going into procrastination. And then if you keep putting that task off, then yeah, you will delete it at some point because it's become obsolete. Yeah, exactly, Svetlana. You do the same thing as me. So let's try to move things around for all of you. Can you let us know in chat what kind of tasks you would definitely put in the first quadrant of this Eisenhower matrix? So both urgent and important, both me and now. What kind of tasks would you put in there? Let us know in chat. Charlie, what are you thinking? What would you put in quadrant one?
Yeah, so in quadrant one, I have a one-to-one with a colleague, someone who I need to talk to fairly urgently about some upcoming courses and training. It's been planned. I've kept it in the diary and it's been there for some time. So it's arrived. It's today. I'm not gonna be able to move away from that. It's an important meeting that I need to have, and it's urgent because we need to discuss future training that's coming ever closer. So I would make that an absolute priority and do it now.
Yeah, absolutely. The time has come. You've planned it strategically, so you need to address it now, and it's your one-to-one, so you can't necessarily delegate it to anybody else.
No.
Very good. Svetlana says usually something that's a blocker or has a lot of dependencies linked to it, like decisions and further planning. Yeah, that is actually a very important consideration. If I don't address this right now, does it mean that 15 people all around me are waiting for me to do this? And therefore I am blocking them. So yeah, if you're blocking someone, then definitely this is a consideration of do it right now. Rachel says paying invoices. Yeah, these things usually come with a deadline, don't they? So it's good to get them out of the way before something becomes overdue. Okay. And a lot of things that come to us from somebody else, especially people who consider themselves to be super important, we tend to put in the first quadrant, yeah, it's urgent and important, but it's important to ask yourself, is this really a fire that I need to firefight right now? Or is it just this person that thinks this is the only thing I should be focusing on because they don't know my other priorities? Yeah, that's exactly that, Rachel. It's requests from senior management or leaders that because these are important people, we would assume that these requests are urgent and important. But that's why it's it's really useful to have those conversations and ask them, do you really need it for yesterday? Because that's quite unrealistic. When's the next thing? This is when I can address this. This is all the other things I've got on my plate. Do you want me to reprioritize? Engage that boss or leader into that conversation, see what they say. All
Yeah, and
right, so with, sorry,
that's
sorry,
when
Charlie.
saying no can be quite difficult, and
Yeah.
that's when the conversation might need to be yes if. So that's a moving
Mm,
certain other tasks around to allow us to prioritize something different. But you're right, it needs to be a proactive, assertive conversation sometimes.
yeah. And then hopefully, if you're working really strategically, most of your tasks will be in quadrant two. So let us know in chat again if you have any tasks that you approach strategically, that you plan and decide and then, well, put off until their time comes. Rachel says yes if it's super helpful. Yeah, yeah, it's a good way to start or continue a conversation. So, Charlie, what would you put in your quadrant two? What's the thing that you can really strategically plan?
Yes, so I have lots of important content creation for upcoming courses. They're not until April, May time, so they're not particularly urgent, but I do need to plan that design work in. So I'll often look ahead of my diary, put it in, think about how much time it's going to take, and consider what else I've got going on at that time and be a bit strategic in when I'm going to use my diary for that focus time.
Mm,
And then, of course, when that time comes around, that's then when it slides into quadrant one and becomes a do it now task, but very
yeah,
much in quadrant two, and planning.
yeah, and that's how it should work. That quadrant two should be your pipeline of things that are coming up. And Kimberly agrees. It's
Yeah.
designing workshops, it's facilitating external workshops. It's going to be any kind of long-term goals that you're working on that can't just be smashed out in the last 5 minutes. You really need to commit some time to doing those. So definitely quadrant two. Quadrant three, delegation, like I said, not necessarily super accessible to all of us, depending on your position. Let us know in chat if you've got anything that you would say goes into urgent but not important. So it needs to be done right now, but not necessarily by me. Shelley, in a position of someone who doesn't manage a group of people, do you have anything that can go into delegation for you?
Yeah, so quite often when I'm designing training, I'll have to put a particular graphic in one of the slides, a certain model, and quite often I'm asking the branding team very nicely if they can help me with that piece of design. Usually they'll be much quicker, more efficient, better at doing it than me, and they might have the time for it. So often we'll lean on colleagues and collaborate on a piece, which makes it more effective.
Yeah, very good. And you have to extend the definition of delegation because oftentimes I hear, okay, but I don't have direct reports right now, therefore I can't delegate. But as we've just heard from Charlie, and just like Rachel says in chat, delegation could be to your peers or across teams, or finding someone who has the skill set to deal with something and asking them for help or for contribution or even just for a brainstorm, and that can help us. Uh, and things that can go into quadrant for in the bin, delete or automate, not important, not urgent. Let's actually talk about them on this next slide because a lot of them will be just stealing our time and a lot of them will be imposed on us or we feel like somebody else is trapping us with that time stealer. Some of them might be self-inflicted. So think about it, everybody in chat, and let us know. Write down some examples. Is there anything that you feel like is stealing your time and possibly is imposed on you? So it's probably going to be, I'm going to say it right now, meetings that could have been emails. Or meetings that we feel like we need to go to, but we feel totally ornamental in them because we don't have anything to say, we don't have anything to contribute. So chat, let us know, is there anything that is a time stealer for you?
Yeah, and of course, sometimes we need to have these fairly explicit, assertive conversations to understand if we are able to put them in the bin. And yeah, it takes a little bit of assertiveness sometimes to have those conversations, especially with people up in hierarchy or managers.
Kimberly in chat says notifications from everywhere. Yeah, exactly. And that's why do not disturb is your best friend, or definitely mine. So what do we do with those time stealers, Charlie, especially those that are imposed on us? Do you have any advice?
Yeah, so if we have time stealers that are imposed on us, it's really important to consider what is within our circle of control and to really take a proactive approach with those. So, an example could be all those notifications, interruptions from others. We can be proactive. We can turn on do not disturb. We can move ourselves somewhere else. We can put that sign on the back of our chair to ensure that we have a little bit more control over limiting our interruptions and distractions. Equally, we need to think about our energy and managing our energy. We're so often quick to think about doing things in time blocks, and we should be spending X amount of time on this or that. But sometimes, if we've just not got the energy for it, we're going to sit there for hours and hours and just not be productive. And yes, we've sat there for 3 hours, but we've done the equivalent of what we could have done in 20 minutes if we'd had high energy. So it's really important to manage that, to take the breaks we need, to look after ourselves. That is a huge part of being productive.
Yeah, yeah. And for so many people, taking a break is such a radical action because I've certainly worked in places where everybody would look at you funny if you suddenly took a break because you needed it and not because it was official time for a break, right? But again, human brains weren't supposed to work like that. You can't focus for more than those, let's say, 25 minutes. But again, brains are different. If you're using Pomodoro, it might turn out that your focus time stretches farther, and that is absolutely fine. But you also need to realize that you can't live your whole life or your whole workday on turbo mode. And this is an analogy from video games. Don't know if any of you play any racing games, but you can't use turbo mode for the whole race. You have to slow down to replenish it. And it's the same with our focus and with our energy. So you do have to give yourself a little break. Get up, stretch, go make that coffee to refresh your brain. And sometimes you need to trick your brain into thinking that it's had a break, especially if you work in a restrictive place that tracks whether you left your desk. So I used to have this trick a couple of jobs ago where I would have to, well, work on my computer a lot. So to give myself an image of a break, I would walk across to the photocopier and do some photocopying just to have that break to refresh my focus. So you have to do that, otherwise you're just gonna lose it. You will be, like Charlie said, working 4 hours, not achieving anything. So coming back to those time stealers, which should go in the bin, which should go in quadrant 4, possibly be automated. Here's a couple more examples. Some of them are self-inflicted, and like Charlie said, you need to figure out what you can influence, what you can control. And we'll be sending this to you in an email so you can do more of a self-analysis later. We have a message from Rachel saying last minute requests from clients or other departments. Yeah, that's also often the things that we put in quadrant 1, the quadrant that's on fire. We have from Svetlana, stakeholder request can definitely be time stealers, but sometimes even after all the yes, if it's still the time tax you have to pay, sadly, but trying to minimize it helps. Yeah, sometimes you can't escape it. Sometimes it is your job to address these things. But if you're only addressing these things, then you're not going to have the time to address the things where you can really make an impact. So it's important to ask yourself, how much control do I have over the things I do? And another thing that's within your circle of control is working with your brain and not against it. Because you could be trying every single tip or every single trick to make yourself more productive, but they're not going to work because all brains are different and you might have ADHD, you might be on the spectrum, you might be anything else. And some of the tricks you need to flip them on their heads, and some of the tricks you just need to move on from. And one thing that you should observe within you is when you have the most energy, because like Charlie said, sometimes it's not about managing your time, it's also about managing your energy. And you might have different circadian rhythm compared to the rest of your team. So you might feel more energized at different times of the day. So if you have any autonomy or any power over your diary, over your schedule, it's worth observing where you have more energy to deal with certain things. For example, I'm not a morning person at all. If you've ever worked with me, then you'll know the universal rule of working with Aggie. Don't call me before 10 a.m. I actually do my best thinking past 2 p.m. So if you want any useful input from me, for example, in a meeting, it better not be the first thing in the morning because yes, I will be awake, but I will still be sluggish. So mainly, I'll be doing text-based tasks. So I absolutely understand that sometimes you can't avoid certain activities or certain things, but whatever you can control, you should try working with your rhythm and not against it. And we're almost coming up to a close. So one last thing I wanted to show you before we wrap this up, and you can really take this away and practice. Being more productive doesn't mean doing more things. This is the thought I want to leave you with. In fact, it's the opposite. You should focus on the things that really matter, tasks that you can make a difference with, or tasks that are really impactful, and the rest should be judged with the is it me, is it now blade, and then slashed away if it's not. And I take inspiration from something that Bruce Lee said once. It's not the daily increase, it's the daily decrease. We should try to hack away at the unessentials. This is the thought I want to leave you with. You can let us know what you're taking away from today. But we still have a couple of minutes for questions and other things. So, Charlie, take it away. I know you had something to say.
Yeah, we'd just love to hear what your top takeaway would be from all that we've discussed today. So feel free to pop that in the chat. And key messages from us. So really identify the source of your procrastination. Use those 3 questions to diagnose and then decide whether you should fight or embrace it. Lean into those methods that we shared to make you more productive. Absolutely utilize that Eisenhower matrix and try and think about working more in quadrant 2. Is it me and is it now? Ask yourself those two questions.
All right. And if you want to stick around and ask us any questions, we're happy to stick around. We've got well, you can follow us on LinkedIn if you want to learn more from us. We run these a couple of times a year. Our next webinar will be in May. And if you want to let us know if this was useful, then we've got a feedback form that you can fill in. I've just put a link in chat, but you can also scan the QR code that's on your screen right now. And like I said, we're happy to stick around for a couple more minutes to take any questions. And I'll stop the recording in a moment. So, Charlie, if you want to say goodbye to chat, thanks everybody for being here. I'm stopping the recording. You can stick around. We will be sticking around. See you again in May.